Yeah, I'll just give a quick introduction. I'm Gakyo Sensei, so a quick introduction to myself. But now Lisa Gakyo will give a short presentation on the fundamentals of Zazen meditation practice, which is body, breath, and mind. So this will be about 40 minutes or so, and these are the fundamentals of the practice. So enjoy.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Enter Here and Eon Zen in Willow Farm. So I'm going to give the basics on Zazen, or sitting meditation. And as Sensei mentioned, we'll look at this in 3 stages or levels: body, breath, and mind. So working from the exterior to the interior. And beginning with the deportment of our body and what we're physically doing in our practice. And we want to find a position to sit in that is awake, yet relaxed, that's dignified and kind of regal without being stiff. People talk about sitting up straight, like a wall or a broomstick, and that's not how we're actually meant to be. Our spines form an S curve. So we want to work with how our bodies are, and not just our individual anatomy, but how our bodies are feeling each day. So your sitting position might be slightly different than the person next to you, and different than yours was yesterday or tomorrow. So the first thing we're going to do is find a foundation. And we want to imagine ourselves as a tripod with our rear end and either our knees or feet as the 3 points of contact with the ground. And this works whether you're sitting in a chair, whether you're sitting in a cross-legged position, or whether you're kneeling in a seiza position. So 3 points of contact that's going to evenly distribute the weight of your body. And you want to not be pinching nerves and doing things that are going to make your legs fall asleep if you can avoid it. So I'm going to start with the base, with our the end of our spine and with our rear ends. And what we want to do is have our pelvis slightly tilted forward, as if the whole pelvic bone was like a bowl of fruit, and you just wanted to gently tip the fruit forward onto a tabletop. So slightly belly forward, tailbone kind of coming outward, so, or toward the back. So you're actually sitting on your sits bones rather than your tailbone. And that's also another kind of internal tripod to distribute your weight. And what having that tilt in your lower spine does, besides respect the way our bodies are built to function, is it will help you sit upright. It will open up your pelvic and chest and belly cavities. So you'll have greater access to a full range of breath. So by sitting down, and what I tend to do, and I'm going to turn sideways to do this, is when I go to sit on the cushion, is actually get up on my knees, tilt my butt out a little bit, and then drop down. And that helps establish that curve at the bottom of your spine. And it works the same in a kneeling position or on a chair. So once you have that piece of your foundation kind of set up, that allows you to build a structure with the rest of your body that's sustainable. So by having that weight distributed, the tilt in your spine, your belly's soft rather than held in, and you're going to allow the S curve of your spine. So there'll be a little curve outward toward the bottom, toward the back, moving forward toward the belly, back toward the shoulders, and then at the top of your neck coming slightly forward. And one way to let your spine find its position is with a little bit of a rocking or a pendular motion. So you could sway back and forth from side to side a little bit, and let each sway get a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller until your body eventually finds its center. And the other is to do that in arcs, really like dropping a pendulum, and let your whole frame move in circles, with each one getting smaller and smaller until it's not even visible that you're moving from the outside, but you can feel it at your core, and then your body will find its center. And depending on how open our hips are, some people will be a little more forwards or a little more back. So just listening to the physical sensation in your body rather than watching others. And this is going to allow you to really find a balanced position where you're using your coins stacking, your vertebrae stacking to hold you in place rather than tightening muscles to sustain a position. And this is going to allow you to stay in a relaxed, seated position for much longer than if you're using strength to hold yourself there. At any point later in practice, if your back or neck start hurting at all, sometimes just checking to see if you still have that pelvic tilt will help realign everything. And everyone at some point in the practice has their back or neck or shoulders start to hurt. So this is one place to look for resetting, and a correction made lower down in the body is always going to work its way up and have an impact and effect on everything else in your posture. So legs we didn't talk about much other than being the foundation. There's a few different positions that work in a seated position on the ground, but I want to just briefly mention, if you are sitting in a chair, having your feet directly in front of you and physically on the ground, and if you're not tall enough to reach the ground on a chair, which I'm not, either scooting a little bit forwards on the chair so you're not resting on the back might give you access to the ground, and sometimes putting a cushion or something under your feet to raise them up can help you have a sustainable, comfortable position that you can stay in for half an hour at a time at least. For sitting on the ground, there's a few different postures. One of them is called the Burmese position, which is where my legs are, and one calf is in front of the other calf like that. There's a half lotus where one foot will rest on the opposite thigh, like going like that. And then there's full lotus where one foot is on the opposite thigh. And all of these are very stable and sustainable if you have the flexibility in your hips and knees. There's no need to try a position that's uncomfortable for you. It doesn't make a better meditator out of you. It might seem like it makes you look cooler, but if it's causing pain and discomfort and it's a distraction, it's not a great way to meditate. So find what works for your body and experiment a little bit. And it might be one foot in front feels better than the other foot being in front. And find out what works for you and your body today. And accept that some days we have a little more flexibility than other days. Some days our circulation's working a little better, and pay attention to your body and listen to your body and give your body what it needs. It doesn't have to be an argument or struggle. For people that sit in a Zazen position or a kneeling position, this can be done with a regular meditation cushion or on a wooden Zazen bench. And would you mind holding your Zazen bench up in the air for a moment to just show people what it looks like? Thank you. And what you would do for those positions is have your knees about shoulder width. I'm going to do this with the meditation cushion instead. And you can have a meditation cushion sitting upward like a wheel between your feet. Tilt the pelvis and then just drop your weight down onto it like that. And I saw something today that I haven't seen somebody do before, is having for taller people, an upright wheel position cushion and then a flat meditation cushion on top of that if you have longer legs. So what we're doing with the rest of our body, once this settles in, is we're gonna let our shoulders find an open, relaxed position and pulling your shoulders up toward your ears. And rather than just dropping down, imagine you're pushing your shoulders outward to the sides. And that's going to create a nice openness across your chest and free up more of your lung capacity for breathing. For our arms, if you just take your arms to the side and let them drop, leave the upper part of your arm where it is. Bring the lower part so your hands meet in front of you. Dominant hand on the bottom, supporting the other hand. Your thumbs very gently touching, and let this come to rest in your lap. There's a lot of different hand positions for different kinds of meditations. This is called the Cosmic Mudra, and of all the different hand mudras that evoke different states, this evokes a calm yet wakeful state of the mind. So moving up the body a little bit more, we're going to look at our neck and the top of our spine. And if you play with it a little bit, you might notice that if your head's tilted a little bit, you're actually crunching the top of your spine. So we're going to very slightly tuck our chin in. And pay attention to what it feels like at the top of your neck. And you're going to allow those upper vertebrae to expand a little bit. They're actually tucked inside your skull. And when our head's tilted back, we're actually pushing against them. So by tucking your chin in, you're allowing a little decompression of those upper vertebrae. Okay. Then we're going to start getting a little bit toward the internal and the transition toward breath. With our eyes, we're going to allow a gaze toward the horizon and then let your vision just drop toward the ground. Depending on if you're in a chair and your height, your vision will probably drop someplace between 3 and 6 feet in front of you. And in Zazen, which differs from some other forms of meditation, our eyes don't close. We want to be able to have our eyes open a little bit just to help us stay awake, but also allow us to remain connected to what we're doing and where we are and our purpose of practice today, and that is to be present. And if our eyes are closed, we get a little bit more internally focused and usually a little sleepier. So having our eyes very slightly opened with a soft, unfocused gaze allows us to stay present without getting engaged with what we're seeing. The other thing is eyes closed, people kind of tend to project images a little bit. Your thoughts become more visual, more dreamlike, and just having a soft, unfocused gaze that just sees a little bit of the floor isn't that interesting, but you know you're still awake in here. What we're doing with our tongues is actually closing an energetic circuit within the body. And we're going to take the tip of our tongue and place it on the upper palate, right where the gums and the front upper teeth meet. This also helps control saliva a little bit. So take a second and just let your body feel its way into this position, and let your mind notice the physical sensations that arise as you're sitting here. And what we're going to be doing is noticing in this practice. And the heart of it is noticing our body and our breath and our mind. So getting familiar with what the correct position feels like. So 20 minutes into a period, if you start getting tired, you know where your body belongs and you can bring itself back there and bring your attention back to that physical somatic awareness. So we're going to shift into breath next. And this is kind of the connection between our outer world and our inner world, and brings our attention inward and less concerned about what's going on around us. The main reason we work with breath is it's there. You can't forget it or leave it somewhere else. It's always there with you, inconvenient. And it's a spark of what keeps us alive. So the way we're going to breathe during this practice is called diaphragmatic breathing. And this is actually how we start breathing as soon as we are born. And we're going to take air through our nose and notice the physical sensation of that happening. Notice the air moving down our windpipes. And imagine that you're filling your belly with your breath rather than bringing the air into your lungs and upper chest. There's a point in our body called the hara, and it's the geographic center of our body, from front to back and also from top to bottom. So about halfway between your navel and your genitals and halfway between your belly and your back is this area called the hara. And we're going to bring our breath and our concentration to that location, slowly filling from the nose into the belly, and then allowing the air to move upward through the lungs, so filling your lungs bottom to top. And then as we exhale, we're going to release air from the top to the bottom. And if you like, there could be a little contraction at the end of the breath to make sure you're removing all of the air from your lungs with each breath, relaxing it and beginning again with the physical sensation of the breath from the tip of your nose into your head, down your throat and chest into the belly, filling from the belly upward to the top of your lungs, and then exhaling from the top of the lungs down to the belly, releasing all the air and going on to the next breath. And in Zazen, we're going to be placing our attention intentionally on the breath as our practice. So there's a lot to pay attention there, not just the fact that we are breathing, but how each breath, like a snowflake, is different than every other one. And one might be more jagged, one might be slower or faster. There's the noticing the sensation in your nose, in your sinuses, in your throat, in your belly, in your chest. There's feeling your ribs expanding to the side. If you're sitting in a chair and have contact with the back, you'll feel your back body filling with air and then releasing. You'll feel your chest rise from the sternum. There's hundreds of little details to bring your attention to within each breath. So it shouldn't get boring. There's always more to bring your attention to. And if you find your mind wandering while doing a sitting period, bringing your attention back to the breath is your way to kind of find your way home. So we've kind of bridged a little bit from breath into mind and attention. One way to help maintain holding our attention on the breath, especially at the beginning of practice, is to use counting. So what we're going to do is, as we inhale, we're going to pay attention to the physical sensation of the air moving through our body, down toward our belly, up into our lungs. And then at the top of the inhale, we're going to slowly, silently count the number 1. So if I put a microphone inside my head, it would sound like 1. And keeping that number 1 in your attention for the full exhale. And when the exhale is complete, begin your next inhale. And as you begin to exhale, the number 2 would be in your mind for the full length of time it takes for your body to release that breath. And there's not a metronome here. You're going to breathe at your own pace, but eventually your natural breathing pace is going to start slowing down a little bit and expanding, and you'll be breathing fewer breaths per minute than you do when you're out in your active moving day. But what we're going to do is count to 10, and there's nothing sacred or special about the number 10. It's just a way of marking where we are, what we're doing, and helps us pay attention. So we're going to inhale, count one as we exhale, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to keep counting till 10 and start again at 10. And that's how you're just keeping track of your breath and keeping track of your attention. Guaranteed 100% all the time for everyone, no matter how long you've been doing this. At some point, your mind's going to wander from counting, and you're going to think about what you're going to be doing when you leave here. You're going to be thinking about if you dressed right for this. You're going to think about if you turned the coffee pot off at home. You're going to think about what groceries you need to be picking up on the way home and what you're going to make for dinner. And all that stuff's just part of what happens. We're going to think our knee hurts. We're going to hear a plane fly overhead. Something's going to grab our attention. And that's fine. That's normal. That's what we're supposed to be doing. We are conscious, wakeful, thinking beings that live in an environment. But during the time that we're doing this practice, we're dedicating our attention to ourselves, to our meditation, and to our breath. So when a thought arises, when you hear a sound, when a physical sensation comes up, you notice it and you bring yourself back to your attention on the breath. So what it might look like is sitting here, I'm all set up, I have my physical position, got my tongue in place, I'm breathing, I counted to 3, and my nose itches, or my knee hurts, or I'm hungry, or I should have said something to this person on the phone and I didn't say it. And you notice that you had that thought, and then you just bring yourself back to the breath. You don't have an analysis, you don't create a story around what you heard, you don't wonder where the plane's going. You just notice that you strayed and bring yourself back to your body, back to your breath, back to this moment, and back to your practice. Start at 1 again and move toward 10. And each time you find yourself distracted, stop the counting, notice that you've strayed, and bring yourself back home to the breath. The reality is counting to 10 isn't an achievement at all. And the more times you start over again at 1, it probably means you're paying more attention. The other thing that might happen is you find yourself at number 32, which means you really weren't paying as much attention as you were trying to or you thought you were. And same thing, notice that it happened, bring yourself back home to your body, back to your breath, back to your practice, and back to this moment. So let's take a moment or two and just try this, and then we'll have a little bit of time for any questions about the body parts of this, the breath parts of this, or what we're doing with our mind. But the important thing is that you're gentle with yourself, that you're having to start over again is not something that deserves punishment or judgment. It just happened and you come home over and over again. And thinking of number 1 not as a go to your room and think about how you've been behaving. It's a fresh start. It's an opportunity, and we don't get that many fresh starts in life, so this is something to really celebrate and treasure and enjoy, the opportunity to come home over and over again to yourself, to your practice. So let's just take 2 or 3 minutes, settle into the position, especially if you're finding a new one or trying something different that you don't usually assume. Feeling the breath through your whole body. Letting your mind stay with your breath. And And gently, without punishment, bringing yourself back if you stray, when you stray. Bring your attention back into the space and the other people in it. Are there any questions or observations, comments about any part of this? Hi.
What sort of recommendations would you have for like your legs or parts of your body falling asleep during meditation?
Good question, thank you. And I actually left it out because somebody always asks. Our bodies are really used to being in motion, and there's a lot of kind of pushback from within, going, hey, we're not doing anything here. And your knees are bent, you're squishing nerves, and legs and feet falling asleep. Always happens, especially at the beginning of practice, and as our body's kind of getting used to the stillness and to this position. And there's a couple of ways to look at it. One is getting curious about the physical sensation. First, just that you noticed it is valuable. And because our bodies like motion and are not used to being still, asking yourself a little bit of, is this sensation or pain? Is this tolerable or does it feel impossible to me? Generally, if something's uncomfortable and we shift, then something else gets uncomfortable and wants to shift. And then something else gets uncomfortable. And what started out as wanting to move your leg a little bit turns into your elbow itching, turns into your neck starting to feel shift. And then you're not sitting still anymore. So asking yourself, like, is this workable? Is one piece of it. And then getting curious, what is it that you're actually feeling? Is this a pulsating pain, a throbbing, a stabbing, heat, a cold? Is it moving or does it stay in one place? And bringing your attention for a little while, rather than to the breath, to the physical sensation. And a lot of times just bringing our intentional attention to a sensation, it resolves a little bit. Again, if this is new to you and your body's not familiar with it, it's going to come up a lot more. Early on in practice, I can remember sitting and imagining, wishing I could amputate a body part that hurt. And I've never needed it. I thought I might, but it never actually was that bad. Our sitting periods are almost always under half an hour, and your body can survive that. And we do get up, and that's part of why we have a walking meditation between sitting periods, is to get your circulation and nerve conduction moving again. But if something really is intolerable for your body, not just your mind and your patience, and it's not an artifact of your mind rather than what your body's doing, a little shift without a lot of drama around it, just a very small position shift, getting back right into your practice right away is we prefer stillness, but if you need to do a little leg change or something, it's all right. It's not gonna throw the world out of its rotation. But the more still you are in your body, the more still your mind's gonna be, and the more still your mind becomes, the more still your body's gonna be, and the less it starts seeking novelty. And the less you're disturbing the people around you, which allows not just your individual concentration to unfold, but it really helps the whole room full of us deepen our practice. Both our mental stillness and our physical stillness is something that is not just ours, but it's everybody's in this space. But yeah, but almost always a little shift of your pelvic tilt can open up the nerves going from your spine to your legs. And that kind of movement isn't something that's gonna disturb anybody. But make sure you really need it, not just want it at the moment. But thank you for the question. Anyone else? Anything else? Anything I missed that you want to know about?
Hands. You know, I mean, I always start out with the greatest of intentions, and then I kind of find they just kind of start dropping away. Any thoughts?
Yeah, this hand position really is a kind of cool mudra because it's almost a wakefulness barometer. And while we're paying attention to placing our hands in this position, holding very gentle contact between your thumbs, we're awake and we're in it. And if you start falling asleep, a lot of times our thumbs start dropping, kind of like a needle on a dial. And it could be a sign to wake yourself up. And finding that your hand slid down your leg or your thumbs are dropping could be a way to realign yourself with your intention of practicing and wake yourself up. It also might be, I mean, and we all have different leg to spine to arm length ratios that are different. For me, my shoulders get very bound up and I use a little cushion to rest my hands on, but it might be pulling in a little tighter toward your groin and having your arms kind of held in place there. It might be a little working with how far up or down works for you. And there's some centers that sit more up this way than down that way, and finding the position that works for the way your shoulders and arms are constructed. But sometimes having a little something under can be useful, of folded up pair of socks or something.
Thank you.
Someone usually always asks about meditating with our eyes open. Now, we may have a more experienced group here today. Everybody's perhaps been doing this for a while, but other types of meditation, we close our eyes. So.
You know, there's so many different kinds of meditation, and they all have different purposes behind them. And some are about wakefulness, some are about transcending our natural state. The eyes open are keeping us in contact with reality and with the room and the space. But it's a challenging thing to, when your body's starting to relax, for you're facing your mind and your eyes to relax too. But it's also a way to check in and go, am I still here? Am I still in this? One way to work with the soft, unfocused gaze is, because because it's not very natural. And when we use our eyes, we tend to be looking and seeking as much as receiving visual stimuli and seeing, is to soften the gaze by, a nice way to work with it is, you know, the thing you do as a kid, you put your thumbs in front of you and see how far your peripheral vision works and how far you can see. There's a place where you are seeing your thumbs all the way out to the side, but you do still have vision in front of you, it's just not where you're looking. And that's the gaze that we're trying to attain in Zazen, is we can see in front of us, but we're not looking at it. So an ant on the floor does not become the most exciting thing in the world, which happens. That you just have that little bit of visual input to know that you're still awake, but you're not straining to hold the position. And another thing that comes up talking about this is no one said not to blink. And somebody with contact lenses always says something about how their eyes dry out if they don't blink. Please blink if you need to. The idea is mostly just not looking around you, not getting really involved in the space between the floorboards, but just passively receiving enough visual information that you know that you're awake and in the room. And that shift between seeing and looking, of searching and receptively receiving is what we're trying to arrive at, a balance. The same way, a balance between being upright and not being stiff. Being aware of our breath, but not being very controlling and manipulative of the breath. There's always these middle points that we hope to find in our practice that allow it to be vibrant and alive, but relaxed and not strenuous and straining.
I have a question about the walking meditation actually. So like in the very first part, when you're going like slow, are you like trying to be in sync with everyone else, or just going your own pace, kind of like slow feeling yourself?
We will talk more about walking meditation later,
Right.
but we'll get to it.
Okay, sounds good.
But there's a different intention between, and a different practice between the fast and the slow. And one's about physical sensation and one's about synchronizing breath and step. Just so you're not wondering until we get there. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Okay, our next segment is Zazen, but I'm mindful that I think everyone's been sitting and practicing for about an hour and a half now. So why don't we just take a few minutes to stand and stretch, and if you do need to use the restroom, you can do that. But it's not a full break. Please come back as soon as you can, and we'll do Zazen.